You wake up before dawn, the way you always do. Cold stone floor under your feet, the smell of last night's oil lamp still hanging in the air. A rooster somewhere down the street already complaining about the hour. You walk out to the small window of your apartment, one of hundreds crammed into this insula block near the Forum, and you wait for the sky to do what it's done every single day of your life. You wait for the light to come up over the hills to the east, except it doesn't.
The light is coming from the other side. You blink. You rub your eyes with the heel of your hand, certain you're still half asleep. Certain the wine from last night's dinner is playing some cruel trick on you. But the color is unmistakable. That pale gold seeping into the sky, spilling over rooftops, catching the top of a distant temple. And it's rising from the west. The direction the sun is supposed to fall into at the end of the day, not climb out of at the beginning. Somewhere below you hear a woman scream. Not in pain, in pure animal confusion.
By the time you get down into the street, half the block is out there with you, necks craned back, mouths open. An old man named Callius, who sells bread 2 doors down, is muttering to himself and pressing his thumbnail into his palm hard enough to leave a mark, like he's trying to wake himself up too. A young mother named Vibia has her son gripped so tight against her hip that he starts crying just from the pressure of it. Nobody is saying much. Nobody has the words yet. What do you say when the one thing every human being has trusted since the beginning of time simply stops behaving the way it should? Here's what you have to understand about a day in Rome. Time itself runs on the sun. There's no other clock that matters. The sundials in the Forum, carved into stone slabs and columns, mark the hours by the length and direction of shadow. And every transaction, every court hearing, every religious rite is scheduled around that shadow's crawl. Merchants open their stalls when the sun clears a certain rooftop. Priests time their sacrifices to the god Sol by the exact angle of morning light hitting the altar. The entire rhythm of the city, from the baker's oven to the senator's schedule, is stitched together by an assumption so basic nobody ever thought to question it. The sun rises in the east. So when it doesn't, it isn't just strange. It unravels everything. Within the hour, priests are moving through the streets in a hurry you've never seen from them before. Robes gathered up in their fists so they don't trip on the stone. A haruspex, one of the readers of omens, is already being pulled toward the temple steps to examine the liver of a sacrificed goat, searching for some sign of what this means, whether the gods are angry, whether this is the beginning of the end of Rome itself. An augur stands in an open square, watching the flight patterns of birds overhead with a face gone pale, because even the birds seem disoriented, circling in directions that don't match their usual paths. You hear someone say the word end out loud, like saying it will make it either more or less true. You hear someone else insist it's a punishment, that someone in the city has offended a god, and this is the price all of Rome must pay. And then, hours later, something strange happens. Nothing happens. The sun climbs the sky exactly as it always has. Same arc, same warmth, same slow crawl toward its highest point. Just moving in reverse of what everyone expected. The day doesn't shorten. The crops in the fields outside the city walls don't wither. The heat arrives on schedule. The shadows lengthen and shrink in the same familiar way. Just cast from the opposite side. By the time the sun finally sinks below the horizon that evening, in the east this time, completing the mirror of the morning, the world is still standing. Nothing has actually broken, except everyone's expectations. That's the twist nobody in the Forum wants to admit out loud. The catastrophe wasn't the sun. The catastrophe was how much of daily life in Rome, its schedules, its trade, its sense of order, was never really built on the sun itself, but on the assumption that the sun would always behave the way it always had. One reversed sunrise, and an entire civilization structure of time nearly collapsed into panic. Not because anyone was actually harmed, but because the pattern broke. And if you think about it, that's not so different from you today. Think about how unsettled a single unexpected thing can make you feel. A clock that's wrong, a schedule that falls apart, a habit interrupted without warning. You build your whole sense of stability on things repeating the way they always have. The sunrise, the commute, the routine. And when just one of those small constants shifts, even for a moment, it can feel like the entire order of your world is coming undone, long before anything has actually gone wrong. So, the next morning in Rome, the sun rose in the east again, like nothing had ever happened. Life went back to its rhythm. But for one single day, an entire city learned just how much of its certainty was built on nothing more than habit. If your world flipped overnight, not destroyed, just reversed, how long do you think it would take before you started to panic?